From RFN Studios, this is Radio Free Norfolk. As the Liberal and Conservative parties continue to tease an early election and we wonder who our local choices will be for Haldimand-Norfolk, Karen Matthews has thrown her hat into the ring as a hopeful Liberal candidate. She was kind enough to join us for an interview. I'm here virtually with Karen Matthews, who is seeking the Liberal Party of Canada nomination for Haldimand-Norfolk. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be able to go online in this sort of virtual way and talk to folks about how we're moving forward with our nomination.
Now, can you tell us a little bit more about that process and where you're at and kind of things that you learned as you were filling out your nomination papers?
Well, what I learned is that you just don't decide to run and then put your name out there. There's a whole process that you go through, and I think it's a really good one. So the Liberal Party of Canada invites people to apply and file nomination papers. On those forms, they ask a lot of questions about you. They make you go through a police check. They ask what your credit rating is. They ask for references in the community. They ask for all of the information about the things that you've done. They ask about articles that you've written and that you've published. They do a really thorough vetting process. So that goes off to the Liberal Party of Canada. Now, I filed my papers a little while ago, and I'm still waiting for them to do something called green lighting me, which means if they green light you, then that makes you an official candidate for nomination, and then you can go on to a nomination meeting. Now, if you can imagine, the Liberal Party of Canada has to deal with every single riding across the country, whether you're an elected official or not. Everyone has to go through this process again. It's like you start all over at every election. And so we have to sit and wait until they green light us. Now, obviously, we've sent everything in, met all of the requirements, and now we're waiting. But it doesn't mean that we can't let people know that I'm seeking the nomination. In the past, when you've gone to do that, you had to get 150 signatures of your colleagues in the community in order to file your nomination papers. Well, with COVID, obviously, they're not asking anybody to go out and meet in person. So they've kind of dropped that piece. And so to me, it felt like a little bit like a secret process. You know, you put it in secretly, whereas in the past, you never did. So I've not been shy to tell people that I have been filing paperwork and, you know, asking people what they thought. Clearly, I had consultation with my family and my friends. And as people may or may not know about me, in the last municipal election, there were a whole group of us that got together and said, what can we do to educate people about the process for a municipal election? And so we started something called Folk and Vote in Norfolk County. And that was really to encourage people to learn about the issues. We, for the first time, live streamed every debate across Norfolk County. And we had a website that everybody who was running could share their ideas and answer questions on there. And so we all kind of stood back and didn't really engage in politics. We didn't work on anyone's campaign. We remained completely nonpartisan. So that's the group I went to. And I said, I can't believe that I'm thinking about this, but what do you guys think? And they were like, 100% it's a go. So as part of this nomination process, I put together this really great nomination team that's been working with me. And now we're just waiting to be greenlit. So once that happens, the Liberal Party of Canada will call a nomination meeting. But they won't do that until they're satisfied that the EDA, or the Electoral District Association, some people call it the Riding Association, has done their due diligence, that they've been out there looking for people that would be interested in seeking a nomination. Once they have a good handle on that, they've checked all my references, then they'll call a nomination meeting. And that's really the chance for everybody who's a registered Liberal to vote. And they get to vote for the best person that they think can represent the riding for the Liberal Party. So right now, I'm the only person that's declared, but that doesn't mean that somebody else might not come out of the woodwork and say, I think I could do a good job. And that's the way the process works. We all put our views out there and we pick the best person to represent the riding. Once the nomination meeting is over, then that person that's nominated would become the official candidate. And so that's really when you can, you know, delve into policy and you can delve into the ideas because you become an official spokesperson for the Liberal Party. So right now, I have this really amazing opportunity to kind of talk to people from all walks of life, right across Haldimand and Norfolk, about what's on the top of their mind in terms of how they would like to engage with the federal government. So that's my job right now. And so there's a bit of a process left to go through, but I'm super excited about the feedback that I've been getting. We launched the campaign on Monday. Today's Wednesday. So within 2 days, we've had over 6,000 people watch the video launch, which we shot in my backyard. It was lots of fun. My partner Rob videoed it and put it up, and then the media releases went out, and all the social media channels went up all on Monday. And the support has been incredible from both liberals and conservatives that I know and have worked with, wishing me the best of luck.
Karen Matthews being involved in the Folk and Vote initiative speaks volumes about her goal to empower voters with information and the importance of local representation at all levels of government. With the federal government anticipating an election sooner rather than later, Karen agreed that it's time all potential candidates get the ball rolling on announcing their intentions.
And I would think that anybody who's interested in running would seriously be considering at this point and reaching out. I mean, it's not a secret that some of the other parties have candidates already. So I think it would be prudent if people, if they were interested, that they would likely be coming forward.
So, for those who don't already know you, can you share a bit about your background and your involvement in the community?
Absolutely, I can share that. It's no secret that I have been really engaged in the community most of my entire life. I was born and raised in Port Dover. Well, actually, I was born in Simcoe, if the truth be told. Raised in Port Dover, which, interestingly enough, is the geographical center of Haldimand-Norfolk. And so I've done things both in Haldimand and Norfolk my entire life. I was raised in a family where my parents were kinsmen and Canucks in the community, and they believe strongly in community service. And my dad still jokes that he did enough chicken barbecues that he has the secret recipe memorized for the Kinsman Canada Day barbecue. So he wears that very proudly as an honor. I just love that. He won't tell me what it is. So that's his secret to know. But we played hockey and we skated and we went back and forth amongst all of the communities here. I never envisioned that I would be this actively involved in seeking this nomination. But as I look back, there's so many things that I've done in partnership with our community that it makes sense that this is a really great logical next step for us to move forward together. As the manager of the Norfolk County Fair and Horse Show for 12 years, I often get credited with all of the expansion and the really cool things that happened at the fair. We started a bunch of new events like Eat and Drink Norfolk. We started, this big farmers market at the fair. We started a major concert series there. All kinds of really fun things that I got to do over the years. But I mean, I didn't do that by myself. I did that with 400 volunteers who stepped up to the plate and said, we really want to see this fair grow and continue for many years to come, and all bought in. And so I'm really fortunate that I had that kind of support in our community. And then, of course, the big thing that everyone talks about was in 2013, Mumford and Sons. They were the #1 recording act in the world. They'd won the Grammy for Record of the Year, decided that they were going to do 5 festivals around the world called Gentlemen of the Road Stopovers. And they went on a sort of a search for somewhere in Canada, and they partnered with Live Nation, which is the largest promoter of concerts in the world, to produce this. And I remember sitting at my desk one day, and Chris Baird, who was the manager of economic development and planning for Norfolk County, sent me this little ad, and it said that there was Live Nation was looking for a site, and there was some sort of event they wanted to do. And he said, Karen, you should just take a look at that. So I picked up the phone and I called Jason Grant from Live Nation. I said, Jason, I hear you got something. I've got this amazing facility in Simcoe, Ontario, in Norfolk County. Would you be interested? And he said, funny enough, I was on your site yesterday, and I think you guys might be a fit. And so that really was the start, the genesis of this incredible weekend that happened, where 30,000 visitors came to Simcoe and visited all over, both Norfolk and Haldimand counties. We had buses that ran all over the place so that they could get out and about. It had a very big economic impact and was one of those events that would happen once in a lifetime. So we were one of only 5 locations in the world. We were the only one in Canada that got that event, and it was amazing. We were trending worldwide on Twitter.
I remember that. And I remember the cell phone service was all patchy because there were so many people in Simcoe.
You know what? We kind of shut down all the cell phones for Simcoe that day. You could not get a phone call off the site. But at the end of the day, there's so many great lessons that we learned from that. And it's funny that you should mention that, because then we were able to work with some of the local providers to really bump up that service for the fair, because it was always a bit of a problem during the fair too, when you get that many people on site. I don't know if people realize that 120,000 visitors at that time were coming to the fair every year. That's a lot. Think about the population of Simcoe was around 15,000. That has a huge economic impact. That's about $10 million that flowed through our community during that one week. We were in the tourism business as well as the agriculture business.
Well, that's amazing. Now, you mentioned that with your community involvement, looking back, this seems to be a natural evolution for you to be running as a hopeful Liberal MP. Was there any aha moment? Like, what really inspired you or made up your mind to convince you to run for the nomination for the Liberal Party?
Well, the last time that I ran for election, I was in high school. I was in grade 9, and they told me that a grade 9 could not run to be on the executive of the Athletic Association. And I said, that's wrong. And we put my name in nomination and I won. So when I think back that was my last election, it had to be something else that drove me. I really feel strongly that somebody going to Ottawa should be representing our values and who we are and really understand our community. So from that perspective, as I started to look at it, I looked at all of the things that I had done in partnership with our community, whether it was the fair, Gentlemen of the Road, even at Burning Kiln Winery, there's so many things that we do together in terms of the concert series and all of the events that we hold there and the fundraisers. And as well, I look back at it, I worked for Haldimand-Norfolk Reach for a year when I was doing all of their marketing and recruitment of volunteers. That was before I went on to the fair. I'd worked nationally for the Kinsmen and Connect Clubs of Canada. So I had the opportunity to work right across this country with people in clubs, doing community organizing and helping set up clubs and teaching people how to recruit members and how to retain them and how to start new clubs, and working at the national conference, the education pieces on that. All of those things kind of started to pull together in my mind. And I felt like I had this unique opportunity to have our voices heard in Ottawa, voices that come right from the people here. And that kind of was the turning point for me as I started to think about what value that has to our community and how I can really extend the work that we've done together.
What issues are close to your heart, and what issues do you see in Haldimand-Norfolk that you feel really need your advocacy?
Well, obviously, we can't talk about this without the pandemic and what's going on. I'm elbows deep in tourism, and I'm hearing some really interesting statistics around the comfort level that people have at the end of the pandemic about what they think they will or will not do at this point. When the pandemic hit, tourism was hit hard. We were hit first and we'll be the last ones to recover, because it's all about people's travel patterns. I mean, the border's still closed, right? The latest statistics that came out through the Ontario government, it was part of a national survey. Basically, Canadians are not feeling good about opening that border. They're not feeling good about even having people visit from province to province, and even as much as community to community. They don't want to see that happening yet. And they're worried that at the end of the pandemic, that they're not going to feel like they're going to want to even go to a sporting event. Only 9% of the people that they surveyed said they would go to a sporting event, and 13% said that they would feel safe enough to go to a concert. So I think we've got some real challenges in rebuilding that sector. And that's something that I'm passionate about. Right now, I manage a farm. So a winery is a working farm. We have 27 acres of grapes. We produce wine on our property. All of the wine is made from the grapes. Sometimes we buy a few from Niagara, but the bulk of what we do is our own product that we grow. We're part of the farm workers program. So I understand firsthand the challenges that farms have with the program. I mean, we don't have to look too far down the road from where we are to see what a disaster it was when we didn't get the workforce in this year. So I think there's a bunch of issues there that I could firsthand dive in on. I've been talking to a lot of my farming friends and colleagues about kind of what that can look like and how we can make the process smoother. Obviously, with the pandemic and COVID, how that's going to work with being able to bring our workers back in the spring. I'm sitting on applications right now. We have 3 workers that come to our farm. I know how much stress I go through. My colleagues, some of them have 300 workers, and what that means to them is just as much as it means to us. Those are a couple of examples of things in the community that I have direct hands-on responsibility for that I'm happy to dive in and work on solutions.
Karen seems passionate about continuing her advocacy for the people of Haldimand-Norfolk and recognizes the potential here in Ontario's garden.
Well, the other job that I have right now in the nomination process is to listen. So I'm doing what I'll call a bit of a listening tour. I've been out talking to a lot of my colleagues and friends, trying to hear, what their issues and challenges are, how that can play into how we move forward as a community, trying to prioritize those. There's a lot of really unique opportunities in Norfolk. For example, I'm so excited to find out that this year is International Year of Fruit and Vegetables. We are in Ontario's garden here. So from a farming perspective, that is a really great opportunity for us to highlight everything that we do in our counties, whether you're in Haldimand or Norfolk. I know Norfolk skews a little bit more to the Ontario's garden brand, but it means that we have this kind of great opportunity to really, really celebrate what we do here. And it's the decade of the International Farm Family. So that makes it even more exciting for us to be able to kind of use some of those ideas and to bring solutions forward for the challenges that we do have.
So, Haldimand-Norfolk has been a conservative riding for many years. How do you plan to appeal to that voter base, given how many of them do dislike Justin Trudeau?
At the end of the day, I think that we need to look at our community and see who has the best opportunity to share in Ottawa the challenges. What values do we have? Who knows the community? Who knows where our needs are? That's the best person. Now, we're all human. There are going to be parts of every platform for every party that you're not going to agree with. Even if you're a liberal, you may not agree with 100%. If you're a conservative, you might not agree with 100% of the platform. But what you do is you align your values to the one that you think is closest to yours. So who is the best person that understands our needs and be able to speak up on our behalf? And I always believe that local is better. That's how I live my life. I live my life based on buying local, supporting my friends and family that are in our communities. I might buy my cars in Haldimand-Norfolk. I don't go somewhere else. I eat in restaurants all over Haldimand-Norfolk. I think you have to look at who is the best person for the riding and have them speak your message.
So you would say that you're prepared to advocate for your constituents no matter what political stripe they identify with.
Well, when you're elected to represent the area. So if I am elected and we get to that point, then I'm going to speak on behalf of everyone here. I have friends, I have some best friends that are conservatives, and I have some really great friends that are liberals, and I have friends that are NDP, and I have friends that are in the Green Party. That doesn't matter because you are the elected representative of the communities, and you need to speak on behalf of everyone in those communities.
The political landscape has been a bit polarized. I'd say maybe more so recently. How do you think we can unite Canadians given that polarized political landscape? And what do you think could break the cycle of hyperpartisanship? And how should we deal with political extremists on both the left and the right?
Well, I really appreciate that question because I think that there are things that do unite us as Canadians, and those are the things that we have to keep in the back of our mind. You know, one of the things that I keep looking at is that relationship between the federal government and the province of Ontario. That's the province that I live in. Every day I watch Doug Ford and I hear what he has to say, and I hear him complimenting the federal Liberals on the good work that they're doing in terms of doing the best job that they can. He's been working with Christian Freeland, and that I think that's just amazing, and I think that's the way that it should be. And I feel like it's a nice model that we should be working towards, you know, working together. I've never been that person who cares where an idea comes from. That's the only way you can be successful is by listening and engaging. And that's what I see my role. And if I know that I have amazing conservative farming friends that have ideas, those are great ideas. Let's share them. Let's work together. And I feel like that's a role that I played a lot in our community, bringing the community together to do all kinds of really great things because we are stronger together than we are apart. And I can see that is such an important role when you represent a riding and taking that message to Ottawa.
So, water is a growing issue here for our riding and also for a lot of Indigenous reservations and territories. They've had to deal with empty promises and slow moving progress. Do you have any ideas on how we can better prioritize the water issues that we have throughout Canada and in Haldimand-Norfolk, and how we can expedite the work that needs to be done?
Well, I think this is the perfect example of the listening exercise that I'm going through because I've learned a lot from meeting with my friends in Haldimand around, you know, the opportunity there with Norfolk County councillors, talk about what the needs are on the Norfolk side. Obviously, there can be an opportunity for the federal government to play a role, and I think that as a community we can come up with a solution, but I think we really need a strong partnership between our local government and the federal government, and I can see that this is a really great opportunity for me to be that bridge.
I agree that we need cohesive solutions now more than ever to recover from the effects of the pandemic and build a sustainable, stable economy. Karen spoke about an amazing common sense solution born right here in Haldimand-Norfolk called the Alice Project.
So there's this really amazing project that happened in Haldimand-Norfolk that was started by our farmers here called ALUS, ALUS, Alternative Land Use Services. The whole idea behind that was that farmers on their property have pieces that maybe they aren't suitable for farming anymore. So they've taken the opportunity to, Alice invests in these properties through carbon tax credits and pays farmers to turn them back to nature, knowing that what's good for nature is good for us as human beings. So for example, at Burning Kiln Winery, we were a former tobacco farm. On our farm, we have irrigation ponds. The irrigation pond that is right as you come in the entrance is an Alice project. So what we did was we leveled out the sides and created some marshland there, so some wet areas around the pond, and turned it back to nature. So instead of being an irrigation pond, which were dug deep and straight down just to get water off for tobacco crops, it now actually serves as an Alice project. And we have lots of wildlife that lives there. We are on the edge of the UNESCO World Biosphere. And so we have turtles that come up and are in our pond, and snakes. And, you know, it's a really amazing opportunity for us to teach kids about nature. We have a lot of city kids that come and visit. They stay at Long Point Eco Ventures or they come over to the winery, and it's a great opportunity for them to see a real frog. I've taken kids down there and they say, "That's not a real frog." And I say, "Yes, it is." And I put my foot down and the frog jumps and they scream. So I think that is a project that's an amazing project that was started by our farmers here in Haldimand-Norfolk, and it's gone nationwide. And so I think it's a good opportunity for us to look at carbon tax credits and how they can play out in our communities. That's just like a little tiny example of something that started in Haldimand-Norfolk that's gone further.
Speaking of community projects, if you became MP, are there any partnerships and initiatives that you would like to bring forward that you may have crossed paths with people over the years in your community service?
I think that partnerships, both public and private, are essential. It really does spur on economic development. And so there's a great opportunity there for us to partner. I've been part of several projects over the years. That's how we see growth. Sometimes those little seeds that get dropped grow into something much bigger and they continue on. And so I'm thinking from the tourism perspective, if there's a little bit of seed money for people to try an event or to try something that will drive more people here, it's a great investment of public money because the return is so great. Even from an infrastructure standpoint, the building projects and being able to, water is a great example. We can't have any further building without more water. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity for those kinds of partnerships to develop and grow. And as an MP, it's really your job to kind of seek them out and send that message to Ottawa that there are these opportunities here that will make our communities a better place. I'm really listening for those right now. I'm talking to people about what that looks like for them, both at the municipal level, at the private level, and just really getting a good handle on how we can move forward together with these projects.
There's a huge disconnect between the different levels of government sometimes. We've seen this when representatives from Health Canada attended our police services board meeting about marijuana grow ops. How would you go about bridging that gap?
Well, I think one of the strengths that I've always brought to the table is the opportunity to bring people together to make things happen. You don't do things in our community without getting some buy-in, and I see that happening at different levels as well. Sometimes it takes just sitting down at the table and having a conversation, and there needs to be an impetus. And what is that impetus? Is it our MP? Is it our MPP? Is it our mayor? Who is driving the process? I think we all do need to work together for solutions. That's the only way that we're going to get better. And whatever party that you're aligned with, we are still representing Haldimand-Norfolk, and we still need to work together to make that happen.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Any message for potential voters?
There's a great opportunity for people to learn more about me by just visiting our website at votekarenmatthews.com. You can learn about my background. You can send me an email, whatever issues that you have on the forefront of your mind. Now is the time to share them with me as we're starting to formulate our discussions after we go through this nomination process. I want to hear from people, whether you're a Liberal, a Conservative, an NDP, a Green Party, whatever party you're aligned with. I still want to hear your ideas. I also have information on all of our social media channels. So if you want to log into any of those and find out about the process, because I think it's really important. I work with a lot of people under 30 who keep coming to my office and saying, Karen, what does this mean? Or what does that mean? And so I think it's, incumbent upon us to really kind of share the process so that people can learn about what a nomination is and how that's proceeding through and what does it mean to be greenlit and what happens when you're a candidate. All of that information as we go through it will be posted there. So you can kind of follow our progress as we go along through this. And that's going to be a great place for people to go on and learn about the issues that we've chosen to bring to the forefront.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight, and we wish you the best of luck. We hope this interview helps our listeners make an informed vote, and we look forward to hearing more from this homegrown potential candidate as we move closer to election time. And remember, use your voice and just fucking vote.